Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Truth Bombs. We have the opportunity to introduce to you an incredible woman of the world who I had the opportunity of meeting in a very random, amazing situation outside of Tulum. I remember we were coming back from a festival or a conference together, and Isabelle was going to the airport. She's always on the go, and we had a very deep and meaningful conversation from the drive from Tulum to Playa together. And here we are. She is an international Tantra facilitator, and I have had the opportunity of witnessing Isabelle on her journey the last few years. And every time I go to her Instagram or listen to a video, I learn more about myself, the shadow of myself, the energetic side of myself. And so she's said yes to coming on here today to talk about some of the things that a lot of us are curious about, but maybe we don't know how to ask. And so I would love for us to start out the conversation and just say, Isabelle, thank you for being here. And could you just introduce yourself, how you got into Tantra, and maybe for people who this is a new subject, maybe a little bit about what is Tantra?
Beautiful. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. And well, as you said, I'm Isabelle, and I lived in Tulum the last 2 years. And as you also said, I'm traveling a lot. For the work I'm actually doing, I give retreats everywhere in the world, mostly 4 days Tantra retreats. And I also do work online and offline with people in the area of Tantra. And as you said, like Tantra is a very big word. And it's very hard to explain in a short way. But as I would explain it, when I just try to make it graspable somehow for somebody, it's basically to go into everything that keeps you tight, everything that keeps you smaller, everything that keeps you attached to who you think you are. You dive into all of these things in order to break free of them, in order to accomplish liberation or expansion. And when we speak about expansion, it's very much energetically. So we expand energetically in order to realize more of who we are, which we don't know yet from the mind. So it's basically really breaking everything away that we think we are in order to experience life in a broader way.
So if I hear you correctly, Tantra is about really going into the feeling and the sensation and understanding maybe the things that are not said. Would be another way of like tuning into what Tantra is?
So the thing is, what is really fully correct about what you said is like it's impossible to understand Tantra by reading about it. It's impossible. So in Tantra, you really have to sit down and do the practices and move through all of the inner work, because otherwise Tantra is just, very superficial. And you won't get, like, even if you read about it, you won't get about what it really is. So you need to do the practices, and you need to start opening up your body in order to feel all of the things that are coming up when you look a little bit deeper. So firstly, mostly we have to look into our own life and be very honest to ourselves of, okay, what in my life is not going right at the moment? What in my life is really not who I am? Like what is wrong about the things that I do continuously that are not in alignment with what I feel to be true? And that is the first thing, because then the question comes up, what is true for me? And then the whole rat race starts. So as soon as you get to that point of, okay, what is actually true? What do I actually desire? What actually turns my body on? What actually makes my heart on fire? And then we slowly start following that. And that already in the beginning is very like scary for a lot of people, because you burn bridges when you start looking a little bit deeper into your life.
So I have a question, because this concept is very new to myself as well. So are you saying that I would have to get in front of you to be able to start this practice? Or is there something like, is it like when you're in meditation, you allow it to like come to you? Or how do you get started? Because what I'm thinking, how you described it is, okay, I'm trying to pull out what is empowering me, right?
It's not so much about empowerment. That's just a side effect of it. Because in between you will feel not at all empowered. It's like a wild ride a little bit. It's much more about what is true for me. What is the truth? What is the truth about me? Who am I? So you really want to go to the core of what you are. And by that, of course, you need to look at all the things that keep you away from who you are. And when you ask, okay, do I have to sit in front of me? No, you don't have to at all. You can start with breath works, with certain sadhanas, with certain kriyas. You can start with all of those little practices. But at some point, you will also want to explore different areas in Tantra. There are different areas where you can dive into when it's about Tantra. And there are thousands of different streams of Tantra, because India is also so big. Like in every little different corner in India, there are different teachings. However, when you work in one of the areas that I'm actually practicing in, it has a lot to do with also practices in polarity. So you work a lot with groups or with a partner where you have basically the masculine and the feminine energy embodied. And why we want to do this? Because all of us, we have both energies within us. We have both masculine and feminine energy within us. And the thing is that it's really impossible. It's nearly impossible for us to understand each other. It's like men think, what the hell is going on with these women? Like, we have absolutely no idea what is happening inside their heads. Like, it's so, we are so ridiculous sometimes for them, right? And also for us, sometimes men are so logical. It's like, wow, where's your body, man? Right? So it's like we are so different. And that is the beauty, because when we look into Tantra, the biggest concept is everything in the whole universe is polarity. Everything is polarity. So we have the Shiva and the Shakti energies. And Shakti is basically the feminine energy. That is movement, energy. Everything that moves in this whole universe is Shakti energy. So she's movement. She's basically energy. And Shiva is the container, the consciousness that makes Shakti able to move. Because if he wouldn't be there, there would be nothingness. Like, she couldn't move in anything. So he's the container, and that's the energy that flows through. And then when we break it more down, it comes to, okay, now on the material level, in woman and man, these energies are also embodied. So it's like the macrocosm and the microcosm, right? And when we go all the way, when we break it so much down, it's like, okay, now I'm here as this feminine expression, and this is the masculine expression. And somehow, because we are so different, this other part interests me so much that I want to dive into. And that is why we have so many conflicts, because we are so different. But that's also why the magnetism is occurring. Huh? That's the only reason why we have so much magnetism between the masculine and the feminine, because we are basically two different halves of the wholeness. Mm-hmm. And in when we go deeper, it's like, okay, when we work with each other, we slowly start to recognize this other part within ourselves. So in a sense, yes, we want to become whole as the masculine and feminine energy. The man should become able to hold the container for the feminine so that she can go deep, so that she can initiate him into a higher version of himself. And by that, we also want to become whole within ourselves. So we want to remember the feminine and masculine energies within us fully in order to be a wholesome being, right? So that is, for me, the most beautiful way of practicing in Tantra until now, because it's also changing. However, for me, I just see so many beautiful changes within people, because there are so many wounds in between the masculine and the feminine. And just the man recognizing the feminine, witnessing him in stepping up and trying to be the one who holds space. By that alone, the masculine grows so much. Like, he has so much light in his eyes. He's so excited about, like, yes, I'm going to show up for you all. You know, it's like, it's so beautiful. And then the feminine, like, when she regains that that assurance for herself, like, yes, like, all of this crazy energy that's running through me is actually needed on this planet. This is healing for this planet. We're like, we need it. And we actually need to express our feelings with the masculine, because that is guiding him more into his heart. So we need both of these energies, and we need to work together in order to to gain this upgrade together. It's like an upward spiral that we create. And then, of course, there are more different practices also in sexuality. But in the first phase, it's really about observing how we can, with each other's energies, upgrade each other and release each other from the belief systems that keep us small.
So there's a few things you talked about that are so powerful, and it brings me back to my experience when I first moved to Mexico, and I had been running many businesses. I had experienced some really traumatic loss in my life, and I was the one like trying to figure everything out. And when I arrived here, I had just been hospitalized again for another cyst rupturing on my womb. And when I got here, I was at a different level of exhaustion. And what do I mean by that? I had nothing left to give. And for any of you listening to this, there's that moment when you feel it, you know, you have no capacity left. And I asked myself, and this goes back to what you were saying, I asked myself a question: what does Jen want to do today? And the truth is, I didn't know how to answer that question because I had been so busy forcing, doing, struggling. I was in this cycle of like, go all in and burn out. And I didn't understand the roles, the polarity of the masculine and feminine. And what I realized is like, I had not felt safe in my past relationships. And that wasn't just on them. That was me not trusting myself. And so what happened is I took on this very masculine role of taking care of everything. And I didn't allow my partners to step into that masculine role. Now, if we bring it back to what you were talking about, I know now the feeling of when I am not in my own authentic energy. And that's a story for another day. But so many women, including myself, are trying to recondition this pattern, not quite knowing what the pattern is, but just feeling exhausted, burnt out. There is no form of creativity in their life. It is all just do, 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 do. So for someone, for a woman specifically, like coming into this new observation of herself, like, can you explain a little bit about the feminine energy and like what is important about it for us to start recognizing in ourselves?
Beautiful. I think, first of all, if somebody wants to look into that, first of all, I would love if somebody's listening to this right now to first ask themselves, like, what were the role models in my life in femininity when it comes to women? Like, what were my role models? And to what degree did they allow themselves to really embody the feminine energy, which is nurturing, which is community-based, which is loving, which is caring, and also very flowy. Well, she's water. And at the same time, because that's sometimes what we forget, the feminine is not only that cute little one who's just loving and nourishing and flowing. It's also a very strong person. Like the feminine energy is very strong and she's very deep and very dark, because from the feminine womb, from our energetical womb, we actually create out of nothingness. That is why a lot of women are so creative. They can take something from nothingness and have it here, like they have it in front of their head, and like, that's what I want to create, because that's going to be sacred for this planet, that's going to be nourishing for the community, this is going to be nourishing for other women. So it's basically like when we go a little bit deeper into that, it's about the feminine really holds the sacredness of everything, because we have the capacity to also feel everything very deeply. We can feel the whole collective suffering. We can feel the love of the whole collectiveness when we really allow it. And that's sometimes really hard for the feminine, because we have so deconditioned. We have been so deconditioned from the fact that we have such a huge capacity to feel and to use that and to trust that, and to also use it in order to bring down like just creative ideas about how this planet has to evolve, or how the planet should be treated, like all of these things, to really trust it and be like, no, this is what I need. And then to include the masculine to actually help her bringing that into the material, because the feminine is getting it from the nothingness and the masculine brings it with his penetrative energy into life. That's then later the whole beautiful synergy of both energies. But what I really wanted to say is that I think when we talk about this feminine energy and about this nurturing and that surrender and that like also the surrendering towards the masculine, there's a huge fear that we are going back to being completely submissive to the masculine and completely being housewives again, completely just looking great and cooking. And I think that's why so many women are so afraid to really look into it, because they're like, no, I don't want this. I stay in my own power because the other one is scary. And what a lot of women don't see is there is a third option. What if I include that cooking, loving housewife with that strong woman, and I bring spirituality in? So when I include my my submissiveness, my true direction and my power and spirituality, when I integrate all of these parts of myself, can I then not be a much more powerful version of myself when I bring all of that to the table, when the masculine brings all of that to the table? Because the masculine has also different versions of himself. But when we own all of these parts of ourselves and then we come together and we are not, one is submissive and one is dominant and the other is submissive, it's much rather we both stay in our power. We are both powerful, and still I can surrender to the masculine without losing my power. And still the masculine can trust me that when I have something to say, that it comes from the spiritual, that it comes from a deeper realm, because I'm in my power. I'm not trying to manipulate him to do something that makes him smaller. I want to see him rise as well. So, and that is, I think, the most important thing to see as a woman. Like, I don't have to adapt any kind of concept or role, but I want to integrate all of the parts of myself. Who am I when I allow everything? And also to look really deeply into, okay, where do I feel resistance towards? Where do I feel resistance towards? Because mostly when we hear, oh, like surrendering to the masculine, it's like, no, I don't want to be submissive. When there's such a strong resistance towards that, then we have to look into, okay, did I have bad experiences? Do I have imprints in my head that if I surrender to the masculine, that he will take away my power? Or can I trust myself that I stay in my power and I want to be supported by the masculine? And I want to support the masculine. So it's really about cutting off all of the energies that don't allow the synergy to happen.
So would you say, like, for someone at the beginning level, going back to this is them looking at maybe limiting beliefs that have, I want to say it's almost like a wound that you put a Band-Aid over that you got to take off so you can allow to become that third energetic pull, like you're saying, to put all three together. Does that go back to probably reworking a limiting belief so you can allow that to come in?
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm not a huge supporter on working on limiting beliefs merely by looking into them, because our ego is so good in hiding it. So if we sit down and we think, okay, what are my limiting beliefs in that area? Like, the real things will not come up. The real deep things will not come up, and they will not show themselves to you. And that is why it's so important to do the practices with each other. And I'm also saying, yes, I can already do a lot in teachings when I, for example, go with the women into their yoni, into their energetical genitals, and go and let them speak to them, for example. But it's not the same intensity. And that is also one thing about Tantra. We always want to create intensity to really penetrate that which we have built. And only when we come together in the practices where we rebuild situations from real life, only then we can exactly see when one contracts, when one starts to hide, when one is not really there, when one cannot surrender. So it's a really different way of looking into yourself. So when you are in the practice with the masculine in front of you, you can really see what is happening. And so that's why, yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of sitting down and just writing or inquiring about it.
I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable right now to touch on this point that Megan brought up and what you're saying. Cause like I have tears in my eyes, like listening to what you're saying right now, because I remember, and this is going to be really like deep, but I never felt safe intimately. Okay. But I didn't know it was that I wasn't feeling safe intimately. I had this logical belief, let's call it logical belief, because I believe so much that limiting beliefs are the mindset. But when we go into the body, I was so disconnected from my body. And so what would happen is I wouldn't feel aroused or I wouldn't feel any of that. And I thought that arousal and I thought that like intimacy was, I'm going to make sure that he is pleasured. And then that is enough for me. Like, and I didn't think about it like that. It's just what happened. And so I would play a role, and without going into like, I would play a role and then I would feel so unfulfilled. And what I've learned over the past 2 years, because we've done a lot of this work, my partner and I, is that I was so tense and I didn't feel safe to surrender, which means I didn't feel safe to receive. In my mind, I thought like, oh, I'm taking too long. It's too much time. It's like all of these thoughts started running in my head and I recognized them. So to go back to the limiting beliefs, I started recognizing the thoughts, observing the thoughts. But then I realized that there was a massive contraction in my body with those thoughts. And I wasn't opening myself up to receive, to be, to feel. And so I don't know if that kind of brings it together, but I remember, and I have to tell myself, even in things like yoga, I lay there and I'm like, I can do this pose. Like, look at me, warrior 1, 2 to 5. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, and then all of a sudden I'm like, but what would it feel like to soften and to really like connect to every muscle that's going into this movement right now? Like, am I holding? I would grip with my feet when I'm uncomfortable. And so I just did it. I have to like soften my feet. And so I believe that Tantra and the mindset and the belief systems and coming back to in the body is really like observing every moment without, and with discernment and without judgment. And like one of the things I notice is people are disconnected from their body. They're not tuning into the body wisdom. And could you talk a bit about that? Like tuning into the body, like we are so disconnected. As a society.
Yeah. Super much disconnected. And as you said, we don't even recognize it anymore because everybody is so disconnected from the body. And as you said, it's so beautiful because a lot of times when we think, it's so interesting. Even if I say like, how free are you in your expression? Yeah, I'm super free. And then you know already, because that's the first sentence that the ego brings up. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm good. Like I did look a lot into it already. But then when you really stand in a group of people and you have to let out your energy that is running through you, I tell you, it's a different thing. It hits differently. It's like, okay, what is this energy? And a lot of women start moving beautifully. And I'm always like, no, it's not about beautiful. Cut off your head. It's not about beautiful. And most people don't even know how to move when they just allow. So, and that is the different thing when every time on my retreats, and that's for me what Tantra is also a lot about. It's about cutting off the head, cutting off the beautiful face, cutting off the smiling face, cutting all of these things that keep you in your small little comfortable box, burning them down. All of these things. So who are you when all of this doesn't exist? And I want to see it because for me, there's a seventh sense that we have, and that's resonance. We can feel when somebody is truth. And I push the people until I can feel truth. I don't let them out of the practice until I feel this is truth right now. And that is exactly the hardest thing for them because they don't even know how it feels like when they just hand their body over, when they just allow their body to move to the music without thinking about how the man thinks she looks. Can she be ugly? Can she bring her tongue out? Can she just allow her body to explode out of pleasure for her own self? And to get there, it's already so much work, because when you have guilt around your pleasure, you don't dare to go there. If you feel like you have to please the masculine and you have to look beautiful for the masculine, you will move like a little robot. And to rewire the brain of feeling like this movement, this dance is for me, like this is for me, and by that I'm inviting the man to also show me his truth. And that's also regarding the body. Like when the sexual energy is cut off in the feminine's body, her radiance is not there, and the radiance of the feminine is the biggest gift of this feminine embodiment. This feminine radiance can move mountains. It's not, like the feminine is so powerful as soon as she re-owns that power. And to also know, okay, like if I connect to that power, it's not about overpowering, but to use that power for something higher. And as soon as that clicks, you move differently in your body, because you know that you carry the Shakti in you, the goddess is inside of you. And not in the sense of a beautiful goddess. There are also a lot of terrifying goddesses in Tantra, and you're also that. So, but you keep that pride inside of your body that you have 1,000 faces, and that these 1,000 faces are not understandable with the mind. It's about allowing them. And as soon as you have that longing for truth inside of you, which is the basis for Tantra, then you know that you will never misuse these 1,000 faces. And yes, in the beginning, it's a little bit clumsy, but you will become more and more refined. But for that, yes, the very first thing is to start reconnecting to the body. And the hardest thing to do so is in front of the masculine. So
Wow.
to have that mirror of the masculine and to actually see, okay, like right now, it's like so much pain in my body when I allow more of my pleasure. And a masculine expression is witnessing me, and he's not going anywhere. He's staying. He's receiving me in my awkwardness and my pain, and I'm still here. And that in and by itself is already so healing for so many women. You just allow them to be in their pain bodies and to be in their not knowingness of how to actually be in your own sexual energy for your own sake. And then having the intensity of a man watching you, that is just, yeah, it's very intense, but also the most beautiful of how committed and how soft the masculine is when he stands there and witnesses that. It's so beautiful. It's very healing for both sides.
I only understand that because of my experience recently. And I want to bring this back to something important, because a lot of the viewers, Megan is one of the most incredible moms I've met. She's a mom of 3 girls. And so Megan, I'm going to kind of like bring this conversation back, because I watch, like, we'll be on a Zoom call and the kids will be screaming, and she instead is like, what do you need? Like, always coming to like, your reactions and your emotions are welcome here. And I see that in her. And I'm just like, wow, I never had that. Like, that is new age motherhood. And so like, Megan, like, do you see pieces of this? Like, your little girls, they like build spas in the house and they dance around in their costumes. Like, do you see that feminine energy in your little ones? Like, does this, like, I don't know. That's what I'm thinking about right now.
Yeah, and I think without bringing tears, I mean, just the situation today, Jen, actually. So my daughter was hospitalized. This is all crazy. This is coming forth, but my daughter was hospitalized this past May, and we were there, and there was a little boy there. This morning, I got a text from one of his cousins who's taking care of him. He has no family, so he has a cousin taking care of him. Same age as my daughter, 5 years old. And he asked he wants to FaceTime my daughter while he's in the hospital fighting for his life. And it's funny because you can see at such a young age, who, like, My youngest daughter, she has it. It's so strong in her, you know? And then my middle daughter has it a little bit. My oldest, she's got more masculine energy, right? And I don't know if it's just because she's the oldest, or maybe she's gone through some other things. So yeah, you can. And it is very powerful.
Like the divine dance of 5 years old, the masculine wanting the softness of the feminine. Like we can see it in our little ones if we pay attention. And I think like that's one of the things I have a blessing of observing with you, Megan, is like that motherhood, that feminine love and that nurturing. And Isabelle, I would love to know, like, for anyone who wants to start tuning into the body and start like really, because we get so caught up in like feminine, masculine roles. And like you could go on Google and Pinterest and you look up feminine and it says you need to do this and don't do that. And I'm like, okay, stop with the rules. Like, what does it feel like? And so what would be kind of your advice if you wanted to start feeling into the body and like understanding it through sensation?
So there are a lot of different practices, and I think there are some very traditional practices which are a little bit more meditative. But I think actually at this time of the world, it is not really the most serving one. So for the women, I would just advise to put like a temple music on, just like really like something that is a little bit like reminding you of a time that you have not experienced, but how you would imagine the sacred feminine to dance to. So just one song, and I can also share some with you afterwards that you can put underneath. And then make yourself like a temple, like a dark room with candles, incense, and just allow yourself to slowly start moving your hips a little bit in the beginning, just allowing your hips to start a little bit. And then you just start increasing the movements, start increasing. And there are different practices, but just by doing this and then starting to inhale through the nostrils and exhaling through the mouth. And there you will already feel, okay, this feels awkward. Like this is like completely weird. And then going to this little threshold of, okay, can I go deeper, or does my ego now hold me back? Because that is what is happening. Like when we go into this freezing or hurrying or like, oh my God, because it feels confronting. And can I just move through it? And just for 5 minutes, can I enjoy my body fully and allow every awkwardness that is there to just be there? And I will go from the beginning to the end. I will go through one whole song without stopping and without becoming numb. So, because this is the thing, you can do this numb. That means your brain is out. You see it's like a fog. It's foggy, okay? And every time you feel foggy, you're not doing the practice right. Because what you want to do is you want this whole song to be completely present, every time this little thought comes up, like, oh my God, what am I doing here? This is so stupid. Why should I do this? That's exactly your sign to go deeper, because that is how the ego prevents for you to know yourself better, because it wants to stay in the little comfort zone that you have built yourself. And every time when this is coming up, this is your sign to go in more. But only do it until like that time that you can stay present. As soon as fog is coming, stopping. For the man, there's a different one, because it's like a very different energy. So the feminine is very flowy, and it's very like juicy, and you just want to really get into this bodily movement, like maybe even snake-like movement. And for the masculine, it's much more about this penetrative energy, about this like this strong, erect, and piercing energy. Okay, it's a complete different energy. And for the masculine, it's very interesting to just see when you walk into a room, just observe yourself for 1 week. Every time you walk into a room, with how much penetrative force are you stepping in? Do you keep yourself small? Do you hide yourself? Do you cut your sexual energy off completely? Do you castrate yourself energetically? Like, how are you moving through life? Because also for the masculine, the sexual energy is completely necessary. And that's what we are seeing, like on our whole planet. It's the men are castrated. So many men are castrated because of the feminine movement, because of course, because there are a lot of men who did not get taught in the area of sexuality and misused it, right? Because they didn't know better. But that doesn't mean that every man misuses sexual energy. And also here, it's not about having sex. That's the misconception when we talk about sexual energy. It's not about how sexy or beautiful you look. It's about how much you enjoy your own life force running through your body, owning it, and showing it to the world. Showing that beautiful light within yourself and being proud of being here, owning that. And that is why this is so immensely important. As soon as we cut one part off, we cannot be in our full beauty as a human being.
I don't know about you, Megan, but I'm going to try that. Even just the dancing, the hips, our hips we're seeing so much dis-ease in the womb.
Yeah.
Megan and I talked about that a lot on episode 1, and we're going to go into it more, and story for another day, but the hips hold so much. Like, makes me think of Shakira, like, hips don't lie. They don't lie. Like, after you do those movements, I thank you, Isabel, for that exercise. Like, if you feel like you need to cry, cry. If you feel anger, scream. As women, we have not learned how to engage in these emotions. And so they get locked up and trapped in our body, and it makes us feel discomfort, dissonance instead of resonance. And so thank you for that so much. Megan and I are eating everything you're saying, and you hold space for both the feminine and the masculine in your retreats. And so I know that there's going to be a lot of questions in the comments. This is your reminder. Send us questions. This is a big subject. We're just scraping the little bit of a surface right now. And Isabel, when you hold space for both the feminine and the masculine, I think that is a gift. And I see you claiming power, but in your soft feminine. And I'm it's so sexy to even observe. What do your retreats look like? Who are they for? Because for some people, hearing you speak, even for me, when you speak, I feel that you are bringing so much wisdom from everywhere and everything into this 3D world for us. So thank you. What is a Tantra retreat with you? Which is the next one coming up? People, don't worry. Everything about Isabel will be in the show notes. We're even going to do a little mock-up of this exercise she told us about, but I'd love to know, what is it that you are allowing people to witness in your retreats?
So yeah, first of all, it's for everybody. So everybody can come, even if they don't have any experiences with Tantra. However, what I also want to say, if people come, they have to know that their life is going to be different afterwards. Because when you look into it that deep, you cannot go back afterwards. You cannot not see it anymore. So your whole life will have a complete different worldview. And so it's, if you like where you're at in your comfort, and you're just you're very fine, and then it's not the right thing. If you're having enough of not looking deeply into yourself, if you want to scratch into everything that you feel is there, if you have this endless longing for your inner fire to be expressed, when you know that there's something more and you cannot longer wait to not explore it, you have to look into it, then it's the right thing. And even for both sides, for the masculine, if you know that there has to be something more in connection, there has to be something more about a masculine embodiment on this planet, then it's the right thing. And it is intense. So I think there's no one who doesn't cry at the retreat, on both sides, men and women. And so in the first days when we arrive, so on the first day, it's mostly we are working with the energy of Kali, which is the first goddess of the Mahavidyas, of the 10 wisdom goddesses. And she is basically the one who is the goddess of destruction and death. So it sounds fearful, scary to somebody who doesn't know her, but she's really the most loving one, because she cuts away everything that is fake about you. So everything that is untruthful will be cut away. And so we are working a little bit with her energy in the beginning to just make us really, okay, we're going fully to the core on this weekend. We are opening up to this energy, because we know that we want to cut everything in pieces that we can find which is not true. And on the second day, it's mostly about the masculine wounds. And I do that on purpose because when we go into the feminine wounds, I always want the masculine already be ready to hold space. Because for the masculine, it's a lot about claiming space, about remembering their power, about remembering that they have a purpose here on this planet and that they cannot just sit around and play video games, but that they actually have something to do here, and we need them, and we need them to step up. So this is the first day, and already there it's a lot about polarity. I always separate both sides so that they can dive deeper into their certain energy, and then they come back together. And it's like and then that day it's mostly about the masculine energy, even if the feminine also already dives fully into herself when she sees the masculine working on all of these things. And then on the third day, it's all the feminine wounds. So when the men have learned, okay, how can I hold space? How can I not lose focus? How can I actually lead a woman without controlling her, without taking away her space, without being afraid, without losing my focus, like on, and also seeing the surrounding? How can I make her feel safe? So all of these things are going to be learned, and to really allow them to be able to hold the feminine on the day of the feminine wounds. And yeah, and then when we go into the feminine wounds, it's like it's more intense than the masculine wounds, because I feel the feminine expresses her woundings like somehow much more intense than the masculine. And for the masculine, it's a lot about being healed by the feminine. But until the feminine gets ready to heal the masculine, she has to cut everything off that she still connects to. How do I have to be? She needs to lose that in order to be that energy that can actually work with that divine masculine energy. And so yeah, it's like the first 3 days is basically about like really intense penetration of everything that we try to hide. And then on the last day, on the Sunday, it's about coming back together and to celebrate. So to really bow down in front of each other, to share what we are going to do with that which we have learned on this planet, and to celebrate these beautiful energies, and also how powerful people become on this weekend. It's so beautiful to witness both sides reclaiming this deeper knowledge of themselves. And as soon as they realize, I'm not just a woman, I am all of this beautiful Shakti energy, and my body is a vessel for that. And just like women just move different. As soon as they remember that, they just move differently. They treat themselves different. They hold themselves different. And as soon as the masculine sees that, like there is such an honor and such a respect for the feminine. And also for the feminine to see how crucial the masculine energy is for her to go that deep. There's so much respect for the masculine. So that is the whole little journey. It's like going through the dark holes and coming up as beautiful, empowered, as a beautiful, empowered polarity bundle. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, my partner and I have on our list, it's to come to one of your retreats. I've told you this many times. We do the work all the time, but like, I want to go where there's no hiding. It's like not just us. And I saw Megan, I saw you light up, and I want to turn it over and see if you have any questions or anything about what we talked about before we start to wrap it up.
No, I don't have any questions. This is all very 100% new to me. So I am really excited. And my brain is just like thinking of so many things now. So thank you so much. I appreciate everything. And I can't wait to dive more into this.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Isabelle. And for everyone who feels connected to this beautiful woman as the same as I do, her information's in the show notes. You can go to her Instagram. I highly recommend going to check out her content because you just share wisdom all the time. And I love that you walk the talk of what you share with people. So thank you so much. And before we sign off, I'd love to know if you had one thing to share with women about this journey.
Yeah.
What would it be?
So I think what I really I want to share is, if there's just a slight little flame inside of you, just a slight little flame, and you're not sure if you should explore it or if it's actually true or what you should do with it, go and follow it, because there's such a beautiful explosion within you that is possible. And our planet needs that light within the feminine at the moment very much. And we need more women to be in their power. So I just want, every woman who has a little fire within her and doesn't know what to do with it, go in deeper.
Thank you so much, Isabelle. I can't thank you enough for your time today, and looking forward to working alongside you with you more in the future.
Beautiful. Thank you.